And this is a very perplexing story. This is a very frightening story, especially with the little amount of talk that we have around China in our mainstream media, in our Hollywood, with a lot of people being afraid to criticize them. But I think it's important to talk about China, since specifically they do have a big technocratic, big brother police state social credit score that is leading the way in government tyranny that, of course, other people see as an example, take from, and will probably implement similar versions of all around the world. And to me, I think it's important to understand here. China is pretty much this test subject, and they've been able to get away with a lot with its citizenry, with the policies that they have, with now the social credit score that they have, and a situation where literally, if you jaywalk, AI facial recognition camera takes a photo of you, sends you a message on, I believe, WeChat, and automatically deducts money out of your bank account without you even having to do anything. The level of control in China of its citizenry is extreme, to say the least. And now we're getting more worrying information as a database that tracked whether 1.8 million Chinese women were, quote, breed ready, was just found out by security researcher Victor Girvis, who stumbled upon a database of, again, 1.8 million women that listed their names, physical addresses, phone numbers, and one potentially more troubling status, whether they were breed ready or not. Now, many people point to the Chinese government making this database, even though it is still unknown where this database came from. But the reason many people point to the Chinese government is because there was a similar database that tracked ethnic Muslims, the Uyghur population in China, with great detail, with another database that was also found, but was also used by the Chinese authorities. This is a similar one, and it kind of makes sense with the problems that China is facing, because Chinese birth rates are actually the lowest that they ever have been. They dropped 12%, and the population is tapping out. And they have a horrible situation in China right now where there's public contests for people to even score a date because of the Chinese one-child policy that existed before. This one-child policy forced a lot of people only to have one child. Because of Chinese culture, many people chose boys, and now in China, we have 30 million more men than we do women. This has led to very unforeseen circumstances with human trafficking, with enslaving of migrants, and a problem economically that China is dealing with, which now many people allude will most likely be fixed with the Chinese mandating another policy where you're now going to have kids. And this is an important issue, not only amongst race, not only among women and women's rights, but I think the bigger argument here is the state seeing you as property to its survival economically, and especially seeing female bodies as something that they could dictate and own, which they proved before. And now with this database and other evidence coming into hand, looks like they will try to implement again. Very, very scary story, Jason, to see just how absolutely powerful the Chinese spying database is, the information that they have, and the potential of how they could treat their citizenry with the problems that they face as a country. What's your take on it, Jason?
Well, first of all, some of these things aren't really that shocking to anybody that's been following China and their long-time eugenics policy. Now, although this is not a government database, we know that big data has taken over. And folks, I hate to tell you this, but don't be that shocked when a similar database is uncovered by in the United States, and not necessarily by our government, by the way, by corporations that may want to know this stuff in this
Yeah,
database.
we even saw the iPhone has a secret kind of database similar to a social credit score, judging and rating your interactions with people that people didn't even know about. That's on the back end. Scary. Sorry. Go ahead, Jason.
No, and again, with their long-time eugenics history, 1979 was their one-child policy. And if you listen to this, it says, in a subsequent tweet, Gevers, by the way, this man, he's an amazing hacker. He's Dutch. He's part of the Dutch Ministry of the Interior. He found this data cache We need more benevolent hackers like this and less hackers like the Dark Overlord that are holding information from the public. And even when you look at something like The Intercept and Glenn Greenwald and Edward Snowden, they only released 10% of those documents all the way back in 2012. So we need more guys like this to shed the light. But read this quote, which claims that China is missing some 60 million women as a result of the country's one-child policy, which was introduced in 1979. Think about that. Living in a society where males are 4 to 5 to 1 on women, how difficult that would be. And for the state to institute such a thing. So now we have this mystery database with women as young as 15 and as old as 39 with their breed ready status as though they're a dog or a horse or livestock, and that's how they treat them. And this is something that was accessed through a VPN and a hacker. Who's to say somebody in China couldn't find this? Find a woman, look her up online, see that she's physically what he likes, checks all the marks, and then go and stalk that woman. It's very dangerous out there, you know. Once it's
especially with her phone number and address out there as well.
Yeah.
Again, many people are saying that this is a dystopian fear about a state-run, data surveillance-driven population control, but this is essentially what this is most likely going to lead to. And you know, a lot of people I talk to, you know, they say the main difference between a Chinese government and society and American Western society and government is that the Chinese are more honest about what they want. And people know how to interact, because here sometimes, you know, the government hits you in different ways, and sometimes they're a little bit more careful, and it's a fine balance, 2 step forwards, 1 step back kind of scenario. In China, it's just like, hey, the state goes first. And this is, I think, what happened before, especially with the one-child policy, is something that could happen again in a different scenario, and it needs to be called out. And I'm surprised that, again, there's not many women activists talking about this. There's not a lot of immigration activists talking about this, since China, again, doesn't want to welcome in immigrants to help replace their population like other countries. That's a policy that they don't believe in. I'm surprised that there's such little talk about these bigger issues, since, of course, the line that the Chinese are pushing to the extremes of state control are serious, and they will have serious implications with other governments watching who are also hungry for power, like most governments are.
You know, Luke, one of the other big aspects of this that's very disturbing is we enabled this. And when I say we, I mean the United States during the Chairman Mao administration, you know, Rockefeller, Kissinger, Nixon. They empowered this sort of behavior. And now,
yeah, they went over to China and literally said, well, we're going to open up China to the world, make it a quasi-communist capitalist, really just an authoritarian state, and create pretty much slave labor with factories for cheap goods that could be produced for the top corporations in the United States. It was Henry Kissinger who was a part of that major deal. It was David Rockefeller that he was acting on the behest of. And we need to hold those people accountable for these larger actions, because it's creating a country that's becoming more and more of an issue to deal with, not only with its own citizenry, but also its goals for global hegemony and its goals to be a world power.
Yeah, Luke, again, this is a big issue, and they've always used China kind of as this testing ground for these programs. But, folks, I got to tell you, in this new world order, this global governance type ideal set, it's coming everywhere. And when you see these type of databases, know that they exist in the West as well. Where is not clear. Where this originated from is not clear, but it should be alarming to most.
Yeah. In the United States, it's most likely going to be a private one. I'll bet you Facebook already probably has a lot of this information already on you. I bet they already have databases, but we don't know about them, especially Amazon with all the technology that they're building as well, especially Google. It wouldn't surprise me at all. And I think this is why there's been such a big critical kind of outcry with the latest news that Google was going to be partnering with China. Now that relationship is still unclear. But again, very, very serious implications, especially with technology advancing, especially with people using technology to control others. And this highlights a big fear that I think all of us should see as a reality, and all of us should call out and try to prevent from happening.